In reflecting upon life, would you agree that when things go bad, when things kind of get messed up, or if you will, when the sweet wine of life runs out, the tendency is to want to go back to the way things were. I want my old life back. I want the good things. And to keep looking back, saying, if only it could be like it was. You can do that if you're older. You can say, if only I had the body and the energy of a youth, but I don't anymore. Or if only my relationships hadn't gone kaflooey, and if only I could have it back, what we had before. Or if only in our country there was some civil discourse like we used to have. Wouldn't that be great? Or if only he had a church that wasn't involved in some kind of scandal. That would be great. And we keep looking on back. But would you agree that looking back doesn't really do us a whole lot of good, because we're never going to get back what we had before? Even if a relationship or situation gets to a place where things are going well, there will always be the memory of what happened before. Not that it's not forgiven, not that you become free of it, but it's always there. Hopefully and prayerfully, some kind of reconciliation can happen in relationships, for example, but we move to a new level, and hopefully and prayerfully a deeper level, something better. But you can't go back to the way it was. And that's kind of what's going on in the first reading from the book of the prophet Isaiah. It's chapter 62, so it's towards the end of the book. As we well know, the people were taken in captivity to Babylon from Jerusalem, and they destroyed the city, and they tore down the temple, and the people are now captive and slaves up there. But Isaiah comes to them and says, it's going to come into an end. Your captivity here is. All the ways and the things that you've done to get here, well, that's all coming to an end. And God's going to bring you back so you can create a new life. Not your old life, but a new life. And in that new life, I shall call you by a new name. No longer be called forsaken and your land desolate, but rather you will be called by a new name. And I shall call you my delight. All right, try that on for a bit. Close your eyes if you want. God calls me his delight. He delights in me as I am. Regardless of what we've done, God delights in us. No longer do I call you forsaken. And in calling us by a new name, he wants to bring forth new things in us. New things, that they might change what has gone past, learning from the past, gaining some wisdom from it, healing it, and then moving on to something better. You are my delight. I bring forth something new. And at Cana, there's a similar kind of thing going on. At Cana, we do not hear in the gospel a lot of looking back and saying, well, you're to blame for not having enough wine. You didn't figure it out right, or you invited too many guests, and somebody's trying to look back and to point out shame and blame and all that. It's like, what's the point of all that? There's none of that in the gospel. But what happens is that Mary sees the need. They have no wine. She goes up to Jesus and says, they have no wine. And he says, well, how does your concern affect me? But she knows his heart. She doesn't try to force him into anything. She knows his heart. So she merely walks up to the servers and says, do whatever he tells you. Now, isn't that good advice? Do whatever Jesus tells you. And so the servers fill up the water, and all of a sudden the water becomes new wine. Better than what we had there before. Deeper kind of a flavor, better quality. And wow, what happened? Something new happened. Instant miracle. Now, Benjamin Franklin once said, well, that wasn't such a miracle because God changes water into wine all the time. He sends rain from the earth. The rain nourishes the roots of the vines so that the vines produce grapes and the grapes produce wine. God does it all the time. Well, that's true. But here, Jesus does it instantly without the help of the vines and the grapes. Water is now wine and good stuff. That's to emphasize the fact that Jesus has come to make a positive change in our lives. He's come to make things different. And as we follow his ministry throughout his life, we see he changes water into wine. He changes people who are sick into people who are well. Still does that. Especially the more important part, of changing our sick souls when they are sick, our hearts when they are hurting, our spirits when they're injured, into something much better, healed. Hearts with fortitude and love. He changes the sick into the well. He changes sinners into saints. He changes death into life by his own death and then being raised to a new life. Not his old one, to a new life. He changes bread and wine into the body and blood of Christ, into his own body and blood. He has come to make that change. That's available to all of us. And isn't the truth of the matter is that most of the time, that change is more like the water going into the roots and the vines then producing grapes and the grapes producing wine. It takes time. One reason it takes some time is because we don't want to let go of what we had in the past, even though it's never going to be that way again. We just don't want to let it go, so we're caught kind of in between. Isn't that true? But the more we can let it go and trust God to make something new come out of our life, the sooner we will find a new way to live and come to something which God has made better in our lives. A new wine, which comes later. And so I have a suggestion. The suggestion is this, that we invite Jesus Christ into our lives even more than he's there now. But it comes with a caution, because he can make something new out of our lives that we don't have yet. And that we're going to require some kind of a change. Change of heart, a change of spirit, a change in maybe some of the ways we do things, a change in some of the things that we say. There will be a change. To invite Jesus into our lives. Okay, Lord, please come. Help me. And as Mary said, do what he tells you. It's a good advice. To learn how to do what he tells us faithfully. So, I ask you this morning, what need would you and what need do you bring to God today? Where's the wine running out? What's hurting? And invite the Lord into that spot in your life. The Lord who delights in you, in me. So, I'm going to leave you with this question. Where has God moved in your life surprisingly and effectively? Do you remember where he's done that? Do you believe he can do it again?